Big deep breath, everybody. It's Friday, okay? Friday is the best day of the week because it's the beginning of the weekend when none of us really have to work. Unless, of course, you have youth sports to do or parenting to take care of, because that's a job that you never have a day off. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Green Rush Really Live, the regularly scheduled business of cannabis talk show that we have here on every Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock. I'm Jimmy Young, the founder of Pro Cannabis Media. We'll be here for the next 2 hours, and I think we have something like 13 or 14 guests coming up. So we have a very full show, and a reminder that at the end of this show at 6 o'clock, we do run our weekly Weed Talk News program. And I apologize. I had to anchor it because Elena Pinto is on vacation. Next week, she's back. So the number of views will double. I promise you that. I can tell you that right now. All right, let's get right into it. It is Women's History Month. And that means we need, not like we ever needed an excuse to talk about women in our society and in our world and what role they play. But if we have to do this every March, I'm comfortable with that too. Maybe we should do it once or twice during the year too. We could certainly talk about that. And joining us at the top of the show here today is Brooke Westlake. She is the founder and CEO, I believe, of Women in the Cannabis Expo. And Brooke, tell us a little bit, when is that next one coming up and where?
So we're actually building out for the next 3 years, which is pretty exciting. And thanks again for having me on. I love your show. This year, we're looking at hosting 2 shows because last year we hosted 4 and that was a lot. So we're going to do focus on East Coast, West Coast. And we are looking at Chicago is either going to be in June or August. And then Las Vegas will be September or October. We're just waiting for some other show dates so we can just kind of tighten things up, and then we'll be making our announcements on the official dates. And then for the next 2024, 2025, we will definitely be in Vegas. We're going to be international in Canada both years. And then we get to choose what other East Coast cities we want. So we have 2 open options, but that's what we're doing. We're pretty excited about it.
That's great. And I have a great keynote speaker for you who joins us now. She is the Chief Marketing Officer of Acreage Holdings, Patricia Rosi Santucci. Thank you so much for joining us. Hi, good to see you again, Patricia.
Thank you so much for having me, Jimmy. Looking forward to our conversation.
Oh, absolutely. And let's start right off the top. How are things going at Acreage Holdings? How challenging a job is it to be a marketing executive for a multi-state operator?
It's going well. We're making a lot of progress in the last few years. I've been very transformative for our company, and the 2023 is a challenging year. We knew it. We termed it weathering the storm. I mean, what can everything is in motion, right? There's more competition. There's price compression. I mean, China is meeting with Russia. I mean, there's all these things, macro environment that is putting additional pressure to our industry and reinforcing the need for it to really go back to the fundamentals of business and really focusing. I mean, we're having a lot of focus and discipline to make progress, and we start to see some results on, retail data and all of that. So a lot of work, but a lot of progress. And no, it's not easy. It's definitely not a walk in the park, but that's cannabis for you.
Where were you 3 or 4 years ago? Oh, no, I knew where you were 3 or 4 years ago. You were in Maine and you were running the Wellness Connection, I think. Is that what, right? And
yes.
I got to interview you at a NECAN event, I'm pretty sure, in Portland, Maine, which if anybody has been following my life, I spent a good 11 years of my career in sports at the CBS affiliated up in Portland, Maine, and I still have a lot of friends up there. And anytime that there is an excuse for me to go back to Portland between the months of May and October, okay, because I don't need to go back in November to April. I just don't, okay? It is colder in Maine than it is in Boston. And if you're watching from California, it's much colder here than it is over there. But I do want to get into the multi-state operator, Patricia. As you know, a lot of people are looking. look at the things that the MSOs are doing, and they point fingers and they blame, and they're all upset. But I've been one who always says, you know what? A new industry, a young industry, an industry that's writing the rules as they go along, needs this kind of support to keep it going. Is that an accurate statement?
Yes, absolutely. You know, you're a nascent industry. The path has never been charted. There's no golden book of how you should be doing it. So I think um, it's important that you really are creative, problem solving, and go back to some fundamentals, because there's still some business fundamentals that we have to apply every day. Add a serious dose of grit, and then you become a successful operator. I think compliance and regulatory system are making it challenging for us, and this, you know, each state is different, but at the end of the day, you know, the principles of how to do it right are the same. You know, I originally come from France, so the fact that there's all these states that do it a little differently for me is very reminiscent of Europe, right? Because Germany does it differently in Spain and France. So I'm overall comfortable with those nuances, even though some days it's frustrating. But I think it's all about really key learning, sharing best practices, and, you know, problem solving is very important.
Which is another reason why I think women should be ruling the world. Brooke, talk a little bit. It's your turn, Brooke, to ask a question of Patricia. And I know that you have a few, but I definitely think that we should be focused on how challenging it is for women in the cannabis business, and why aren't there more of them? So you can ask any other question around that. Go ahead.
I would love to know, Patricia, what inspired you to get into the cannabis industry as a woman? You know, the numbers of us in this industry are dropping drastically and continue to decline, and C-level positions and whatnot. So tell us what inspired you to be in this industry and why you're still here, because we know, you know, and I know how challenging it is to be in this space.
Yes. So I've been in the cannabis industry for, let's count, 12 years now. So,
Wow.
and I'm still standing. What excited me about cannabis is the challenge, really. The fact that it was uncharted territory and everything had to be created. The challenge of there's not that many opportunities in your career you can have to, you know, I started as an operator, so where, you know, you deal with horticulture, with policy, with building a company the right way, making sure patients are living a better life and all of that. So even though the challenge was big, that was really inspiring me, because I wanted to make a difference. I was looking for, you know, I think if I look at all the point in my career, it's really about making the impossible possible, building teams, brands, and companies in, you know, in marketing and advertising. And so I found my spot in cannabis, crazy or not. And I think it's still a challenge. We've made so much progress, but there's still so much more to do. You know, 12 years ago, there were more women, I think, at the onset. And some have, you know, taken different paths, but I think there's also some that are still there. I mean, Nancy and I were, Nancy Whitemine from WANA, we were visiting Maine together 10 years ago, and we're still there. So there's a serious dose of resilience and grit, and I think women have it. So we can do this.
And tell
Women,
us.
go ahead,
Oh,
Brooke,
go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Jimmy.
No,
Go
no,
ahead,
go.
Jimmy. Oh, I was going to say, tell us how many companies you've been in this industry for such a long time, 12 years. That's fantastic. How many companies have you helped, worked with, been their CEO, been their representative? Share that with all of our viewers, because it says a lot that you've been in the industry for 12 years. So tell everybody just how much you have done in this industry in the 12 years space of time.
So I started in Maine in 2011, being one of the first vertically integrated operators for dispensary, 40,000 square foot grow. One of the first biggest operator in the Northeast with a clear focus on brand experience, customer service, and customer centricity, taking with me a lot of the work I had done with some CPG clients in my advertising background. So the interesting thing is I've been 12 years in industry, but only 2 companies. The first one was Maine, where I started as a board director, then became VP of marketing, then COO, then CEO for 9 years. And there I built a company, an all-around good company, about 100 employees, thousands and thousands of patients, and really making a difference and being one of the first. This also happened to be one of the first states, or the proof of concept, if you will, from which Acreage was built from. So, and now with Acreage, main operation is part of Acreage now, but they gave me an opportunity, which is phenomenal, for me to go back to my passion, which is brand marketing. So now I'm with Acreage, and my interpretation of marketing is very wide. It's everything from product innovation, product development, brand marketing, retail operation, and marketing operations. So I've done it all. That's what I think is phenomenal when you're in a startup. You know, I've pruned, I've trimmed, I've bagged, I've delivered, I've from the ground up, because I think when it's something so new, you need to really start from the ground up and fully understand it to make sure you create a company. For me, it was really important, despite the fact that it was legally illegal and all those things. What really exciting me was to create a company that lasts. And one of my biggest, proudest accomplishment is some of my first hire as employees. They're still there and they're celebrating their 11 years anniversary. And so I've always seen cannabis as a very positive stimulus for the economy, namely in Maine, where there's not that many opportunities, in building something profound that could make a difference. So that's what has been driving me for those 12 years, and a lot of stories and adventures along the way.
Oh, I'm sure you have a lot. You're going to have to pick out, I think after Jimmy asks you a question, you're going to have to pick out like your most favorite story that's like the most memorable, meaningful, and it's something that comes to your mind all the time when you're talking about being in this industry.
Ooh, but let me ask one more question, if you don't mind, at this point, which will be fun. I want to ask you how being a C-level executive prepares you for the next step, and what is the next step in the growth of a career woman in corporate America?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you know, I've had a lot of C's in my past careers. I mean, I've been chief creative officer, chief operating officer, chief everything officer, which is my nickname for CEO, chief marketing officer. For me, it's all about the same fundamentals: people, team, and transparency and clarity. What is my next step? I don't know. My next step is not really about a title. It's about the mission. It's about the passion, and it's about making a difference. I think it's all about also the principle that you bring, and having a certain vision or principles. You know, that's your North Star that guides you through this. What is my next adventure? I don't know. I have no idea. We'll see. It's fluid.
It's certainly great to be part of an industry like we're all in, if you will, that can make a difference in people's lives. I'm sure every person on this call and the entire show has heard hundreds of stories of people who say cannabis has saved my life, cannabis has changed my life. It is starting to be accepted as a plant medicine. I'm all for the normalization of acceptance of this plant, not necessarily the legalization, because legalization means there's going to be law and politicians involved. And I'm not a big fan of either of those two, let's just say. That being said, acceptance. Aaron Smith, who's the head of the NCIA, told me a great thing in front of a lot of people at Albany, New York, when they first made it legal in New York. They had a membership drive up there. And Aaron said, anybody who's in the industry today, okay, has an obligation to educate anybody that you come in contact with. And that includes whether you're going to get a cup of coffee or a newspaper and you're just talking about something to strangers. Don't be afraid to say, I'm in the cannabis industry.
Oh, yeah.
Are we seeing a softening of that at all? I'll ask both of you that question.
I will say that it took me about a year to get comfortable with telling people. And there's a couple of reasons for that. If anybody has looked at my background, I came from healthcare 20 plus years. If you would have asked me 10 years ago if I would be in cannabis, I probably would have laughed you out of a room. I grew up with huge propaganda of being a dare kid. I also had my bio dad was in and out of prison for extreme heavy drugs. So heroin, meth, things like that. And so the propaganda put a really negative taste in my mouth of wanting to pursue and thinking of it as a child as it being a normal, a plant, medicine, any of those things. When it got presented to me, I was a little shocked. And then I started to do my due diligence. And I thought, like Patricia said, there's all these opportunities to create your own thing. And so oftentimes, as I've gotten comfortable, and now I'm in 4 years, I proudly tell people what I do. I proudly share with them and I enjoy every aspect of it. But like Patricia said, you wear all these different hats. There's no gold standard rule of thumb. And that to me, with my artistic side and my education side, has been a lot of fun. And so, I tell everybody I'm the janitor, I'm the secretary, I'm the email, I'm doing all the jobs, I'm the CEO, and I'm all the things. And I'm happy to say also, I am one of those stories of patients that it came into my life for work and it's now literally keeping me alive because I had a very near death experience, lost a section of colon, was very sick, could not keep food down. And it's now something that is keeping me alive daily. I don't have a nutrition valve. So for me, I feel so honored. It's really come full circle in my life.
And Patricia, are you sensing any movement towards normalization? I'm not going to get into the legalization, but the normalization acceptance of the plant.
Yes, there's definitely a normalization. I live in Maine. If you look at the East Coast, all the states now more or less have a cannabis under one form or another that is, legalized, whether it's medical or adult use. So just the fact that you no longer, have the segmentation of states, it's normalizing the conversation because it's a reality in everybody's state. When it comes to having conversation, I think it has come such a long way. 12 years ago, people were hanging up on me when I was calling a banker, when I was calling the insurance, or people were telling me, oh, you're part of those people. I always loved that one. Or now you're part of those people. You're destroying your career. What are you doing? And you know what that did? That made me want even more to prove people wrong and to make the impossible possible because I didn't want it. So we've in my household, we've normalized this conversation with our children, with our friends, because I think it's a very important role that we can play, and not necessarily that I want to have everybody use cannabis, but it's more the idea of let's talk about it. It's not about conversion, it's about conversations and making sure that all questions can be asked, and some of my friends really don't like it, but they're still my friends, and that's just the way it is, and you just have to accept the difference. And also, I'm a very responsible operator in the sense that I understand there's psychoactive effects. It's not something everybody should use, absolutely, and I've always been advocate for safety testing and all these things. So I think it's easy. It's similar to all topics in life. Making a generality is not the right way, but I view this as an important part of what we do, which is try to have conversations and see where they take you.
Right. That's always been my philosophy as a talk show host too. But I want to get into the branding, the challenges of having strict rules about marketing and what you can say, what you can't say. And every single state has a different set of rules. And I'm pretty sure I just read this week that the state of New York is not going to allow billboards, which you definitely have in the Northeast. Almost every quarter mile as you go east to west on the Mass Turnpike or west to east on
Not
the
in Maine.
Massachusetts.
There's no billboard in Maine, but yes.
I don't. Are there any like? Can any company have a billboard in Maine? Because if I remember correctly, there are certain things that people in Maine they say, no, we don't like that there. So regular billboards are okay, but cannabis, no, in Maine. Yes.
No billboard at all.
No billboards, right? For everybody. By the way, that's fair. I got no problem with that. You know, it's the injustices. It's basically a state like New York saying we're not going to allow billboards on our highways. So
no, I know, and I've always found this pretty ironic because they give you a license to operate, but no way to communicate with your patients or your clients, and they task you with educating and informing, but they don't give you you're like handcuffed with the communication channels you can use to do that. So for me, that was a challenge at the onset, but part of my career was building experiential marketing agency. What does this mean is the idea that you can communicate best human to human and find a way. There's always a pathway. If you have a will, there is a way, I think you say here in this country. So it's very important, grassroots events, one-on-one communication, this cannot be forbidden, right? If anybody comes through the door of a dispensary, you need to have a conversation, not necessarily a transaction, but just a conversation answering questions. And then you find ways. Regulators keep making it interesting, but I think even packaging can be a way of communication. There's so many tactics, so many channels. We can always do it, but worst come to worst, you always have a human that can talk to a human.
Right. And as a communicator and someone who teaches young people communication skills, it is still a challenge. Teaching Generation Text how to talk is a challenge. Okay. I mean, pick up the phone and call me. I don't do phone calls. I'm like, come on. They call it a phone for a reason, but I'm also an old fuddy-duddy, so I get that too. I want to talk about the world of science and how it relates to the industry. And traditionally, women were never thought to be scientists. And yet, I would say in the last 4 years since I've been doing this, maybe even 5 now, I've met a lot of women who are scientists. This is a great opportunity for your gender to learn why the plant does what it does when it interacts with our endocannabinoid system. Are you starting to see younger women wanting to go to maybe some of these colleges that are now teaching cannabis botany, if you will, and not to mention the cannabis laws and all that, but how to grow it and more importantly, how to test what's inside that female flower that people do enjoy?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think the cannabis industry, there's science, but it's a wide field. If you want to be a lawyer, there's cannabis law, there's economics, there's all these, it's really a blue ocean for me of possibilities. But at the end of the day, I think what is really important is the intent or the drive from the corporation to actively recruit women. And that's always something I kept an eye on. I remember when we were building our cultivation team, we were looking for some of these young women that would be coming from local colleges and really work in horticulture and have a love for the plant. And it took us a year before we could find one or even get applicants. So I think it's also about making it known that there's an opportunity. It's okay to apply to this position. You can bring so much, right? Namely, when you come out of college, think about possibilities abound, but also making sure on the other side that the companies and the corporation are actively, deliberately recruiting for some women and looking for this diversity.
Yeah. And I'm gonna ask one more, Brooke. You hold your thoughts about that subject because we'll come back to it when we open up, when we have more people on our panel. But I do want to go back to something that is tied to Acreage Holdings that I still maintain probably had more of an impact on the acceptance and normalization than a lot of people. Because when John Boehner decided to get involved and he went from the Speaker of the House to Acreage Holdings, everybody went, "Whoa." This is going to happen. There was like a sense of acceptance and legitimacy, perhaps at the very beginning.
Yeah, we're definitely a company of firsts, whether it's the Super Bowl ads or John Boehner, that's one of our signature moves.
Well, I've got something for you. We'll talk about it afterwards. That would be the first too, but let's not go there for now. I just want to thank Patricia Rosi for joining us here on a Friday afternoon, the Chief Marketing Officer of Acreage Holdings. We've got a full show, all women. And by the way, you might notice that none of my male guest hosts are on this show because, if I can control the production, I'm going to surround myself with smart, beautiful women. And I'm very happy to say we're off to a great start. So Patricia, thank you so much again for joining us. Best to Jacques, your husband. And we're going to take a break because we just missed our 4:20 window a little bit, but we come back with more Women in Cannabis on Green Rush Live. Don't go away.
So for years, we've been doing manufacturing, financial services, medical, and so forth on businesses that stand alone, from doctors' offices to day traders to even small banks. And so when cannabis came along, all of the tools, skills, and miscellaneous that we learned in there, we were able to apply it for them. And for us, it wasn't that big of a problem or a challenge. It worked great. And so they just needed a reporting feature in one software, and luckily that the software company came through for us, came it back, and now it's become the backbone for our offerings, and it's worked out incredibly well.